Well, it's not, and it's not necessarily just homeless, it's at-risk kids too.
Yeah.
I would consider kids that are moving from aunt to uncle's house, I'd consider that an at-risk, cause it's not a stable household.
They're not gonna be at Foxcroft, they're gonna be in other areas.
Right, they're gonna be in,
Areas
down by
like that.
Park Lane.
I
That's
think
a
it'd
very
be still fair to say in those areas, there would probably be more likely, homeless youth would be maybe in those areas versus other development areas.
So, current initiatives on transportation, what are you getting a sense of what's out there right now? What are you seeing as it relates to your affiliations? I mean, obviously, besides the, the city bus lines and things like that, do you know of anything? I'm using this more as a springboard into this brainstorming session, just to see if there's been anything and what those roadblocks have encountered.
I know the Boys and Girls Club do have do have their vans that they do to pick up youth for the Boys and Girls Club. Now, it's not just, they're not just homeless youth, it's at risk or low income. But so they do have, transportation that they provide for their services there.
You can see why this became a topic for this forum, if that's the
It's so difficult to make something, some universal type of thing. I mean, you're almost gonna have to strong arm some people, like the city bus line, and tell them that maybe I don't know how you would do it, so that they could somehow give kids who could show that they were homeless tickets while they were still going to school. I don't know what you would do, I really don't, but I just tell you, if you go out to the campus and start working out there, it's a morass. I mean, you can get lost out there as somebody who's an adult and who's done a few things. I don't know how a kid would even start. It's tough.
When I went to school in Madison, and I volunteered at a group called Women's Transit Authority. I don't know if any of you have heard anything with that. And I looked it up just for nostalgia's sake, and also to refresh my memory. And it shut down, unfortunately, but the way it was run, it was basically, they took volunteers who did the scheduling, so this goes back to kind of where you were leaving before, Steve. People come in, they schedule, they start at X time on Friday night, and I think it was only Friday and Saturday nights at the time, maybe more, where phone lines open X time, and it was kind of a first come, first serve. People would schedule the times and say, okay, we'll get to you between 8 and 8:30. There were 2 cars, drove all around Madison and gave women and children only safe rides. And it was to something, they never did ask really, you know what I mean? It could be for personal gain, it could be for groceries, it could be whatever the case may be. And the 2 vehicles, that's all they had running all night, every night. And I actually look back because, I was in college, so I didn't really know or really care how things were funded at the time. I just went there to help out. But it was actually a partnership between the city of Madison, Dane County, and the United Way. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because could something of that model be implemented here with a partnership, where you'd have to maybe, I don't know what the logistics would be, have some proof of homelessness, and some proof of using the ride for valid reasons, not necessarily to go out partying or something, but to get groceries or to go to one of the resources that we've mentioned. Is there some way to implement that, and what are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously there's the logistics of the startup costs and doing that, but.
This is kind of aside to what you're talking about, but one of the things that you mentioned is how do you, who's going to be considered homeless, and how do you know?
Right.
And one of the, I was at I'm on the having a system where everyone would be able to have resources, would have access to a person's information. They'd have like an identification card. And, you know, obviously there's some things that can't be shared, some information, but if I was a caseworker and I was gonna type saying I'm working with John Doe on work arena skills, so when they go see the probation officer can see that he has been working with me and that he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and the probation officer could say, you know, I'd like John Doe to be working on, trying to work on these skills, whatever. Because some of the kids who have been in trouble also have been, you know, could be homeless as well. But that would be kind of, that system would be able to be used in that kind of format where, you know, there's a thing that says they're homeless, you know, on the back of it, that they're, so they can be identified and be able to have benefits as getting rights, or even benefits as maybe, one of the things that they talked about is, getting some business owners in town to, like a restaurant saying you get 50% off appetizer or a free drink or whatever the case may be, so they have some kind of benefit. So if they wanted to go and have them treat themselves, they could do that.
Sure.
So you've got the community involved as well. But I don't know what process that takes. I know they do up in Minneapolis, they have this system.
Do they?
You know,
But those are for the kids in the system, right?
they don't necessarily have to be in a court system, they can be receiving services
Right.
from like workforce development or the YMCA or, you know, so if you get the collaboration of all these resources, that'd be one way of being able to say, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of so-and-so, I see you've been talking to them, you know, could you let them know I wanna talk to them, or, you know what I mean, so you can, it's a great way of staying connected, it's for the benefit of them, it's, you know.
I concur that it'd have to be part of a program somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the only way we could really identify, and then they could maintain their status as long as they're doing something, you know, and link. You lose privileges if you don't, you know, if you don't show up and perform, you know, minimum standards, and, you know, and then you've got to graduate, you know, from the course to get some perks, and we try to put perks in there like free wine memberships and stuff like that to get kids to go. But yeah, if we could find a way to, and you know, we're trying to get everybody to use SharePoint from an information system, but what we can share and what we can't share right now is with HIP and everything else is makes it very tough to do. I know United Way is working very hard to try and find a way for youth serving organizations to collaborate. They've done a pretty good job at the preschool level, but once kids hit grade school, it's been a lot tougher for, and there's a lot more organizations that, you know, that get involved with that.
You know, and maybe that's where some of these initiatives do actually have to go down the path at the same time, because if there is some kind of homeless transit authority or whatever it is, that would have to tie back to an improved resource collaboration, which is the session going on right over here. You know, one thing would trigger another.
And the other problem with transportation is that if kids do live at a different house, even every other week, you know, the bus line might work one week, and then they're off the bus line. You know, bike might work one week, but then, you know, it doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work the next week. You know, it's just trying to track them. We probably have to do a little work, you know, trying to figure out and to see if what we found out, you know, coalesced with what we thought the hotspots were to pick kids up.
Well,
that's another thought. You know, Steve, when you mention that, if the word got around that from this time to this time, sitting down in the parking lot of the Salvation Army downtown, the old Salvation Army building or something, there'd be a car there, you know, or a couple of cars, then that might be central to somebody making their way there for at least getting rides somewhere else. I don't know whether something like that would work out. I don't know how you get the word out.
And that's where if you could find people that would be willing to drive on a Thursday night or a Wednesday morning, and then have one center that ran the transportation for that, so you call the hotline, and if you were on the list,
Exactly.
Or if you needed to get on the list and you got one-time ride to get yourself hooked up somewhere so you could get on the list. And, we're not gonna get everybody at the times they need, but at least we could, we could do that. If there's some way to even coordinate that with, some of these other buses picking up elderly and, cause I don't know, I'm assuming that there's, cause I don't know, I'm assuming that there's, through the senior center, isn't there some, aren't there some vans or buses out there that pick seniors up that aren't able to drive to take them to appointments and other places, shopping, what have you?
Well, senior center has one van, I think.
Is there any other transportation system set up for seniors?
Yeah, well, of course, all of the different, like Shorewood and everything else, those places. yeah.
So if you're in an assisted living center, then.
What do you think about if we, like what you were talking about with the volunteer network, put something up on bulletin boards, recruit volunteers that could give you availability schedules saying, yeah, I'd be available to drive all day Thursday, all day Friday if I knew a couple days in advance, and people could set up their appointments accordingly, and, okay, I know I can get a ride this day, I could set this up that day. I mean, do you think that there would be enough interest with volunteers throughout the community that you could get kind of a resource pool put together for that?